Want to play that new Cyberpunk update at max settings but don't have a PC strong enough to handle it? No problem, because NVIDIA GeForce Now powered by Pentanet will let you do just that. It's free to try and it's a hell of a lot cheaper than buying a whole new rig. Click the link below to try it free or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers! Oh man, can I be real with y'all for a second? I'm trying y'all out, by the way. Let me know in the comment section below if it's working. I am low-key glad that this was a pretty quiet week in video games. 3 weeks ago, we had the mini E3 press conference dump. 2 weeks ago, we had the Tokyo Game Show. And last week, we had the GTA 6 leaks. It was nice then that this week was a lot more chill, largely bereft of any industry-shaking news, other than Dunkey starting his own video game publisher. But on the whole, it was a pretty relaxed week, and that is great, because we're basically in October now, the single biggest month of releases in your average video game year, this past February notwithstanding. This is a nice week to reflect, to recharge, to moisturize, to prepare for the madness to come, and I definitely needed a week like this right about now. That's not to say we don't have news. I mean, Dunkey started a video game publisher. That's a big deal, right? Plenty more to talk about this week, so let's get to it. Here comes the news. Let's kick off with the most pressing update. It turns out that IRL 15-star wanted rating is going to put you on many people's radars, and as a result, the world's shortest international manhunt is over. The GTA hacker has been apprehended. The City of London police put out a Twitter announcement confirming that they had apprehended a 17-year-old kid who was being charged with hacking. Suspicion was rife that this was the infamous GTA 6 leaker who had somehow gained access to Rockstar's files and obtained roughly 90 gameplay videos and the source code for GTA 4, 5, and 6. Hours later, the police confirmed it, saying that this kid was being held in relation to the Rockstar hack. So firstly, let's just talk about this announcement from the city police. Why do they have this weird banner image with a purple wash and the word arrested in capitals? What is this? Is this for better shareability on social platforms? It's not even the right word. If they wanted to go viral, they should have used the appropriate terminology. There we go. That's much better. So, secondly, let's talk about this kid, 17 years old, not even old enough to be playing Grand Theft Auto in many countries, but clever enough to bypass what is, I'm sure, some pretty sophisticated security. If this was like some 30-year-old dude, I'd be like, rip bozo, your life is over, buddy. Enjoy jail. Being 17, this feels like just the start of this kid's career in cyber warfare. I fully expect Q from MI5 is walking through his jail cell door right now to hand him an RGB keyboard and point him straight at China, who I imagine he'll be spending the rest of his days trying to hack on behalf of His Majesty's government. You've heard of Agent 007? Well, get ready for Agent 1337. If you get that reference, you are old. I don't know what the laws are over there when it comes to charging minors with crimes, but I suspect this guy will probably get off pretty lightly, and I wonder if we'll ever even find out his real name, since that's often suppressed in cases concerning minors. Either way, the Rockstar leak has been plugged, and unless this guy passed these files onto some sort of very brave intermediary, I don't expect we'll be hearing too many leaks anytime soon. Alright, well by now you might have heard that everyone's favorite JRPG enthusiast Video Game Dunkey announced this week that he and his wife Leah are starting a video game publisher by the name of Bigmode, and much like everything else Dunkey says or does, a bunch of people really like this and a bunch of people really don't. I will admit my own bias here. I am a long-term Dunkey enjoyer from as far back as when he mained that torture chamber dressed up as a video game, League of Legends. Since then, Dunkey has evolved to become a variety content creator who focuses mainly on highlighting games he's having a good time with, but his commentary and dunk view videos are always interesting, funny, and thought-provoking takes. He is a content creator I admire greatly, and so I'm naturally going to be pretty predisposed to supporting the stuff he's doing. But doubly so because of what he's doing. He's starting an indie game publisher that's looking to help get games out there that wouldn't have otherwise had a shot. He's got a website up soliciting pitches, but also approaches from individuals looking to contribute to projects, so Bigmode is also acting as a sort of talent hub, which is a very cool idea. As you guys know, I do what I can for the indie scene, and I applaud any content creator who tries to use their reach and or resources to elevate indie titles. So obviously, I fully support Dunkey and Leah, and I hope they succeed. That's not as commonly held a view as you might think though. Some people really hope that this doesn't work. For example, Twitter user Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Game of the Year says, "Fuck you, Dunkey, I hope this flops." While Twitter user Shulk Sweaty Thighs agrees, saying, quote, "Anyone want to see some Shulk lewds? Also, fuck you, Dunkey." Okay, those weren't real tweets, I made them up. But if you've been following Xenoblade Twitter these past few weeks, then you'd know they're basically correct. I think the most acidic response came from sections of the game dev and publisher scene who took exception to Dunkey's tone and talking points during the announcement, which some took to be a little patronizing, as though Dunkey was downplaying how hard it was to make and publish good games. I don't think that's what he was doing, but I can understand why an indie dev or a publisher might think that, and there were more than a few tweets saying that Dunkey is about to find out just how hard all of this is. And yeah, that's surely true. I'm sure that this will be hard for Dunkey and Leah, but it's something they want to do. And it's rooted in a desire to not only help out the indie scene, but to help everyone find cool games to play. And that's my key takeaway from all of this. So I say, good luck. Big news, depending on your level of cynicism as it relates to gaming events, E3 is officially back. Organizers the ESA and ReedPop announced yesterday that the week of weeks in the video game calendar will make a maybe triumphant return to the LA Convention Center next year. Of note is a substantial remixing of the formula when it comes to public access to the event. So it all kicks off on June 11th and 12th, where partner showcases will be held. Think Ubisoft's Just Dance Extravaganza or Xbox's press conference, etc. The show proper begins on the 13th and 14th, where a section of the LA Convention Center will be open to press and business only, followed by a new section of the hall opening up to the public on the 15th and 16th. This mirrors Gamescom in Germany, which has 1 to 2 days dedicated to press and business attendees before like 500,000 people rock up on the final days. So that's the show's structure, but which publishers are attending? We have no idea. There haven't been any announcements or confirmed attendees yet, so I wonder if this isn't a if you build it, they will come type scenario. I'd bet big money that Microsoft will be there, since Phil has long been committed to E3 and has said so publicly many times. With PSVR 2 launching sometime next year, I'd be willing to bet that Sony will make an appearance as well. As for Nintendo, geez man, Nostradamus himself couldn't predict what that crazy company's going to do at any given moment, so who the hell knows. There's sure to be plenty of publishers there, both big and small, so that's something. There's also going to be the Summer Games Fest happening at the same time. When I spoke to Jeff Keighley on the Friends Per Second podcast, he said that his event is now a firm fixture in the gaming calendar, and it would go ahead even if E3 returns. So now we've got at least 2 events running in LA at what I'm going to guess is a similar time frame. Hopefully these events can find a way to work together to complement each other, rather than split everything up into a confusing and clashing mess that muddies the message. Bottom line, I'm just glad E3 is back. I love E3, it's always been my favorite thing, and while the ESA do suck, ReedPop are generally pretty good. They're the gang that organizes PAX and a bunch of other stuff. I'm hopeful that they can deliver here, and I'm looking forward to being back in LA next year. Alright, that was a lot of industry news. Let's talk about some good old-fashioned video games. Battlefield, remember that franchise? Some people do, including Battlefield franchise boss Vince Zampella. This is the guy that created Call of Duty Modern Warfare, then he created Titanfall, and then Apex Legends, and now he's the boss of Battlefield. He's like Thanos, slotting every single first-person shooter Infinity Stone into his gauntlet so he can Falcon punch Bobby Kotick in his stupid face as revenge for sacking him all those years ago. Zampella was speaking recently to Barron's when he shared his thoughts on the disappointing launch of Battlefield 2042, saying that he believes the franchise got away from itself. Quote, "I think they just strayed a little too far from what Battlefield is. They tried to do a couple of things that were maybe ambitious, grow the player count, etc. I don't think they spent enough time iterating on what makes that fun. It's not inherently a bad idea. The way they were set up and the way they executed just didn't allow them to find the best thing possible," end quote. It's easily the most direct and unvarnished commentary on Battlefield 2042's design changes, none of which were asked for by the player base, and none of which resonated when they arrived. This was made worse by the game's horrifying technical state, which everyone plainly saw during the beta test, but EA DICE nevertheless refused to delay the game. Since then, Battlefield 2042 has had a number of updates that have modestly improved the player count, but it does seem as though eyes are affixed on the next Battlefield game, rather than resuscitating this one. And with the promise of a new single-player campaign on the way in future, it's clear that EA are looking to change things up next time around. Battlefield isn't the only game to have fallen on its ass lately. I mean, did you guys play Saints Row? Jesus, what a mess. I genuinely feel bad for the team at Volition, as I've said many times before, I don't think they were trying to scam anyone with this title, but they certainly made a very bad, very buggy, very stuck in the past video game, despite saying that they wanted to update it for a more modern audience. The reviews were brutal across the board, with a few exceptions, and it turns out that the critical drubbing has also led to a bit of a wash when it comes to sales. Embracer's CEO Lars Wingfors was speaking to investors about the launch of the game when he acknowledged its poor performance. This was relayed by Steven Totillo of Axios, quote, "Personally, I had hoped for a greater reception of the game. It's been a very polarized view." I don't know about that, by the way. way. I'm confident we will make money on the investment. Would it have been as great a return on investment that we have seen in many other games? Not very likely, but we will make money and that's a good starting point, end quote. When later asked if this would affect the future of the franchise, Wingfizz was less than unequivocating. He certainly didn't commit to a future Saints Row title in that moment, saying that he would canvass views from across his organization, but I'd be very surprised if they doubled down on this franchise after this launch. It does feel like Volition need to make something else at this point, which I think would be a good thing for all involved. Speaking of updating things for a modern audience, apparently that's what Ubisoft is doing to Splinter Cell? So the next Splinter Cell game is a remake of the original, and a job posting went up for a scriptwriter. The job posting reads, quote, "Using the first Splinter Cell game as our foundation, we are rewriting and updating the story for a modern day audience. We want to keep the spirit and themes of the original game while exploring our characters and the world to make them more authentic and believable. As a scriptwriter at Ubisoft Toronto, you will join the narrative team and help create a cohesive and compelling narrative experience for a new audience of Splinter Cell fans," end quote. Now look, I'll be real, I don't remember this game's story very well. It was a long ass time ago, but ever since my school teachers tried to update Shakespeare for a more modern audience, I've been very cautious of that phrase. I also don't think that audiences have changed substantially since Splinter Cell 1 came out back in 2002. I mean, that was the same year as the Bourne Identity, and that shit still holds up all these years later. So yeah, put me in the skeptical basket for this one, but I guess we'll see for ourselves when the title hits in the very distant future. While everyone is getting excited about HBO's upcoming The Last of Us TV adaptation, Netflix is doubling down on video games in a slightly different way. It's making them. Video games, I mean. This week, Netflix announced that they were opening up a game studio in Helsinki, in the mythical far-off land of Finland. The studio is being led by former EA and Zynga executive Marco Lastica and is committed to delivering original games free of ads or microtransactions. This is now Netflix's fourth studio, the three others being acquisitions or just publishing partners. Netflix clearly have big dreams in this space, as evidenced by their recent partnership with Ubisoft, which will result in 3 new mobile games, all of which will be exclusive to Netflix's storefront. And one of which is an Assassin's Creed game, but it's not Project Jade, the one set in China. Netflix are yet to have any big wins in the gaming space, but if they pick games like they pick TV adaptations, then we're in for a mixed bag. One week Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and the next week Resident Evil. It's going to be a wild ride, and I'm looking forward to it. Hey, just briefly, one thing that didn't make the deadline last week was the official announcement of an Iron Man video game currently in development at EA Motive. This was heavily leaked and heavily teased by a number of people, but most notably Jeff Grubb of Giant Bomb. He was vindicated last week when a newly created Iron Man Twitter account tweeted out confirmation of the game's existence. Quote, "Iron Man arrives in an all-new single-player, third-person action-adventure title, now in development from Marvel Games and Motive Studio," end quote. No other details, but we do know that this isn't coming anytime soon, as Motive are currently wrapping up work on the Dead Space remake, which will arrive in January of next year. Personally, I'm super keen for this. Motive are an excellent studio who have only been going from strength to strength these past few years, and EA is seeing a lot of success with their pivot back towards single-player action titles like Jedi Fallen Order and It Takes Two. Though yes, that was a co-op adventure title, but you know what I mean. Honest-ass video games with no microtransactions, you love to see it. Good luck, Motive. We are all cheering for you on this one. How about a new video games console? Logitech thinks it's a good idea, which is why this week they announced and launched a new handheld. The twist? It's got no innards. Well, it does, but not many, since this is a cloud streaming device, allowing you to tap into platforms like GeForce Now, xCloud, and more on a dedicated, purpose-built handheld. It's called the Logitech G Cloud handheld, and it's a very schmick-looking device that's been getting some solid reviews all around, except in one key area: the price. It retails for $350 US. Now, to put that in perspective, the cheapest model of the Steam Deck is $400 US, and that too can be used as a cloud streaming device, only you can also run your own games on it, locally, without needing an internet connection. I think the Logitech device looks pretty interesting, and I think I'd be kind of keen on it, but at that price point, it's a very tough sell, and I wonder what Logitech's long-term plans are for this category, because sticking at this price point doesn't seem like the right play. A quick lightning round to finish off. A Plague Tale Requiem hits very soon, October 18th to be precise, and this week we heard from the developers that it'll run for a full 15 hours or so with no filler, making it notably chunkier than the last game. Tiny Tina is becoming its own dedicated spin-off franchise after it crushed Gearbox's expectations for it. That's good news, because Tiny Tina's Wonderlands was great, and I'd really like to see this be carried forward while Gearbox figure out what to do with the Borderlands franchise. Apparently, Disney wants wants to turn out at least one Star Wars game every 6 months. That's according to a rumor doing the rounds at the moment. Doesn't seem like the smartest strategy for planning a game's pipeline, but I guess it's better than the one title in 6 years they were running with in that EA partnership. And finally, Cyberpunk's meteoric revival continues, with the title hitting some 135,000 concurrent players on Steam this weekend, and today becoming the highest selling game on all of Steam, outpacing both Modern Warfare 2 and FIFA 23, which are both due out very soon. This is crazy, and it's nice to see CD Projekt Red developers get a moment that was denied them by the actions of their management. Bring on the expansion, I say. I can't wait to return to Night City. So, what got announced or delayed this week? Well, Wreckfest is a destruction derby style game that met a positive reception when it launched back in 2018. This week, the developers have announced a mobile port of the title. We only got to see in-engine footage, not actual gameplay, but it's looking fairly impressive. Definitely noticed the bar for mobile ports has risen substantially over the past 18 months. No release date for this one yet, but it's on its way to both iOS and Android, and you can pre-register right now on the Google Play Store. Speaking of ports, Factorio was just announced for the Switch, and now it's got a release date October 28th. Not too much to say about this one, except the factory must grow. Deadlink is a promising first-person shooter roguelike hybrid that I played during a Steam Next Fest. Definitely one of the highlights of that past fest, actually. With its mix of compelling visuals and fluid action, just felt really good to play. This one just got a release date October 18th, exclusive to Steam for now. Hopefully other platforms will follow after. Another indie title I played during a Steam Next Fest was Cultic. This one I also really enjoyed. This is a boomer shooter, sort of, though it flirts with horror and immersive sim elements too. Fantastic art design that's pushing its classic engine to the absolute limit. I'm expecting big things from this one, to be honest, and we won't have to wait long for it since it lands on October 13th, exclusive to Steam. And finally, Spider-Man Miles is making its way to PC, and sooner than we thought. The original Spider-Man PS4 game from Insomniac was ported to PC a few months back. Absolutely sterling port, cannot recommend it more highly, even if you're playing on Steam Deck. We all had wondered when the standalone offshoot Miles Morales would follow suit, and Insomniac teased that it's coming sometime this year. They didn't provide a specific date, but yeah, it's coming sometime in the next few months. Steam page is already up, so you can wishlist that if you're keen. So what came out last week? Well, first up is Gundam Revolution, which is basically Overwatch with Gundam. I'm hearing mixed things about this one. Definitely seen a bunch of coverage saying that it's pretty good, but the Steam reviews paint a different picture, with the game sitting at a mixed 54% on Steam. No critic reviews up yet, as the title is very fresh, so critics will need a little more time playing it. Might check this one out again next week when a few more reviews have rolled through, but this is free to play, so if you're at all interested, you can boot it up and check it out for yourself. PC only at the moment, and only available in select regions, i.e. not available in Australia. Ripperino. Potion Permit is a charming slice of life game where you play as an alchemist who sets up shop in a small village, and you have to help heal the sick and mix sick potions. Reviews for this one are okay. It's sitting at a mostly positive 72 on Steam, and critics have it at about the same, with a fair 68 on OpenCritic. Game Central scored this one a 6, saying, quote, "A cozy game of potion manufacture, healing, and friendship set in a delightful isometric world that's let down by its grinding repetition and some serious bugs," end quote. A number of other reviews also reference this grind factor, so do watch out for this one if you choose to pick it up. No Place for Bravery is that top-down 2D Souls-like with art very reminiscent of Titan Souls. This one hit the PC last week, and reviews for this one also look okay-ish. It's sitting at a mixed 66% on Steam, but critics are a little more fond of it, with reviews landing at around the 7 or 8 out of 10 mark. The Gamer enjoyed it, scoring at 3.5 stars out of 5, saying, quote, "The things I loved most I can't talk about in this review for fear of spoiling the experience. No Place for Bravery feels fantastic to play, and Glitch Factory have created a story that will stick with me for years," end quote. Session Skate Sim has been in early access since Noah wore short pants, it seems, but all that time doesn't seem to have delivered the knockout punch needed to put this one on the map. Steam reviews have this one at a mixed 65%, while critics have it a fair 73 on OpenCritic. Rock Paper Shotgun had a really interesting grab for this one. Quote, "In contrast, Session feels back to front, so unblinkingly focused on the technical side of riding a skateboard that it's overlooked everything that makes rolling around on a board actually fun. There's plenty of room for a skateboarding game less arcadey than anything with a Tony Hawk face on it, but this early version of Session is a bleak, sterile thing, and one that only serves as a painful reminder of my own lack of talent in most physical activities," end quote. I feel you, my dude, I really do. Here's something that absolutely everyone expected. Slime Rancher 2 is good. There aren't any critic reviews out yet, since this is just an early access launch, but even in early access, this is sitting at an unbelievable 96% overwhelmingly positive on Steam, with nearly 6,000 reviews in, Reviews point to a title that is very similar to the first, but this is just the first phase of the early access, so it's possible that more innovative changes will roll through later. Right now though, the game is extremely polished and highly playable, and best of all, it is on Game Pass, so feel free to boot this one up there if you'd like to give it a go on the cheap. Deerfield Chronicle is next. Last week I noticed that a bunch of reviews went out for this one really soon after the review code went out, and they were all really positive. Fast forward a few days later and a second wave of reviews hit, which were a lot less positive. Right now the game is sitting at a fair 74 on OpenCritic, but an absolutely brutal mixed 50% on Steam. Steam reviews highlight a number of issues with the game, namely some pretty bare bones tactical gameplay, some very poor difficulty balancing, with the title being super easy even on the hardest difficulty, and the story is meant to be pretty damn mid. Critic reviews paint a similar picture. GameSpot scored this one a 5 out of 10, saying, quote, "The Deerfield Chronicle is a pedestrian real-time tactics game that suffers from a lack of imagination," end quote. Though to be fair, GameSpot were more impressed, scoring this one an 8 and saying, quote, "Everything comes together to create one of Square Enix's most enjoyable RPGs in some time, with a combat system that we hope we haven't seen the last of," end quote. Shovel Knight Dig is the latest entry in a franchise that's never been afraid to mix things up, whether it's its cast, its gameplay format, or its developer. This one is being developed by Nitrome in collaboration with Yacht Club Games, and interestingly, this one has one of the largest gaps between critic and user reception of any game I've seen this year. So Steam reviews have this at a mixed 68%, with a number of reviews pointing out some issues with the roguelike design, the responsiveness of the controls, and the amount of content on offer. Critics, on the other hand, are all about this, scoring at a mighty 85 on OpenCritic. IGN echoed all of these sentiments, but did score the title an 8, saying, quote, "It stumbles a bit on its roguelike progression mechanics, and it's a bit on the short side, but none of that stops Shovel Knight Dig from being a blast to play," end quote. While God is a Geek scored this one a 9 out of 10, saying, quote, "Shovel Knight Dig is the perfect first roguelike, packed full of that tasty Shovel Knight gameplay we all know and love," end quote. If you'd like to try this one out, then don't forget it is available on iOS, which would be a nice way to give it a go on the go. So what's coming out this week? Pretty massive week of releases, ladies and gentlemen, so hold on to your butts. First up is one I'm very excited for, Grounded. When I reviewed this like 18 months ago, I called it the best game you shouldn't be playing right now, because the early access was so promising, but also so bare bones that it felt like a waste to spoil the experience by playing it at that moment. Fast forward to today, the game is launching into 1.0 for both PC and Xbox, where it will be on Game Pass. This is essentially Honey, I Shrunk the Kids if it were a survival game, and it's bursting with style, with accessible but flexible survival gameplay, and a story to spur you forward, rather than just a big empty sandbox to play about in. Plus, if you're afraid of spiders, there's an arachnophobia mode, which basically turns the spiders into floating jelly beans. Grab some mates and I promise you will have a very good time with this one. The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero is the latest in a very long-running JRPG series. It's a series that I'm not at all close to, and I didn't even know this was getting a new entry, but I heard about it when reviews hit and they were all really glowing. This is currently sitting at a strong 82 on OpenCritic. This is a very classically inspired JRPG, but it appears to be ticking all the right boxes if you're looking for that sort of thing. It's hitting PS4, PC, and the Switch tomorrow. Tunic low-key crushed it when it arrived earlier on Game Pass. It's basically Zelda in all but name, only with a less forgiving difficulty curve and a way cooler in-game menu. This was recently announced for the Switch, but it turns out it's headed to the PS4 and 5 as well. It's arriving on all of those platforms tomorrow. Moonscars is a game that I've been steadily playing through these past few weeks as I got sent an early code. I am enjoying it. I was roped in by the impressive visual design and top-tier animations, but I stuck around for really interesting approaches to narrative, combat, and progression that aren't necessarily unique, but they all click together very well in this package. Don't expect anything to surprise you here, but do expect something that delivers on what is promised. This one is hitting all platforms on the 28th. Let's Build a Zoo hit PC last year, and on the 29th it'll be available on all consoles. Dwarf Romantic. Yo, this one is the 6th highest rated game of the year on Steam at the moment, a position that it's held ever since it launched, really. I've been playing this one on the side. It is wonderful and relaxing and just nice. It's kind of like Tetris, except instead of blowing up blocks, you're building villages and landscapes. Hard to explain it much more than that, but if you're looking for something to just veg out on while listening to a podcast or something, then you could do far worse than this. It was already out on PC, but on the 29th, it'll hit the Switch. Absolutely perfect title for crowded commutes during rush hours. Moonbreaker is up next. This one is from the Subnautica developer Unknown Worlds. We'd all hoped they'd been working on Subnautica 2, but nope, they're working on this weird-looking tabletop board game thing where you can paint your miniatures in great detail and then use them in turn-based battles. Interestingly, the lore for this universe is being written by the absolutely prolific Brandon Sanderson, a tidbit that got a lot of people very excited about this one. Personally, I'm in it for Unknown Worlds. This is a cool studio that made one of the best video games ever made in Subnautica, so I'm just keen to support whatever they're doing next. This hits on the 29th, exclusive to PC during an early access window, but who knows after that. Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous is a CRPG from Alcat that dropped in September of last year for PC. It's hitting all consoles on the 29th. Valkyrie Elysium is the second RPG that Square Enix will be releasing this month, the other being Deerfield Chronicle. Valkyrie is of course very different, being a semi-open world action RPG rather than a tactics-based one, but it's looking very flashy. Apparently the combat is great, and the demo that's out has been well received. Reports for this one indicate it's about 20 hours long, so it's a little on the short side for a JRPG. That is fine with me. Bring on the 20-hour JRPG, I say. This one is hitting both PS4 and 5 on the 29th, and it'll hit PC on November 12th. And finally, there's a new FIFA game coming out, which I couldn't give two shits about, but did you know that they put Ted Lasso in there? AFC Richmond, baby, let's go. Would I buy FIFA to play as Roy Kent? No, I wouldn't, but it's nice that it exists, and that's the only time you'll ever hear me say something nice about FIFA. Something a little different for you to put on your radar today. I'm still a fan of print media, though it's rare to come by these days. I still have an Edge magazine subscription. I hold the publication in a slightly different regard than I did 10 or 15 years ago when it was this monolithic force in gaming commentary, but I still really value its voice, its presentation, and the fact that it's this thing that I can hold. All of those things drew me to Lost in Cult, an indie publisher who put out crowdsourced gaming publications. These aren't magazines, but nor are they books. They're kind of in between that, and they're packed full of interesting essays and interviews and so much art. These things are really beautiful to just flip through, and my growing collection holds pride of place on my shelf as a result. Recently, this team announced their latest project, a book dedicated to the making of one of my favorite games of last year, Sable. It's divided into two parts, the first of which looks at game design and production, and the second one does a deep dive into the game's art. And the entire thing is presented in this magnificent looking book and this really nice case, and it's just super cool. I use this space in my show each week to shout out indie titles. Well, this is an indie publication. I've bought 4 issues from them to this point, and they've all been excellent, and I expect that this Sable tribute will be no less excellent. If you'd like to get into this stuff, then I'll leave a link to their website below the like button. Do get in fast though, because all of their stuff always sells out really fast, and that'll probably only get worse now that I've shouted them out, so sorry about that. Sort of free stuff time now. It's the last week of the month, so be sure to grab those PS Plus, Games with Gold, and Amazon Prime goodies before they disappear. We don't have any word on next month's lineups yet, so I'll be sure to fill you in on all that next week. One thing to shout out right now, though, is the Epic Games Store, who are giving away some truly excellent stuff. Dino Riders survival game Ark is on there, as is the digital tabletop game Gloomhaven. Heard really fantastic things about that one actually, so might be one to check out if you're looking to take a chance at something a little different. Grab them quick though, because on the 30th they'll disappear, replaced by Runbow, which is a fun-looking competitive platformer, as well as the Drone Racing League, which sounds kind of goofy until you watch some gameplay and then you're like, hey, that looks pretty good. Reminds me of Hot Wheels, where everything is really big and you're really small, except instead of driving, you're flying. I don't know, it just looks fun, and hey, it's free, so you can't complain too much. Our feel-good story for the week starts with the GTA 6 leaks. One of the unfortunate byproducts of people seeing in-progress gameplay is that they'll judge the title on that gameplay, leading many a bellend to exclaim, yo, that looks like shit, GTA 6 is gonna suck. I think the majority of you who watch this channel are smart enough to not be that dumb, and I don't need to explain to you that games in development look like games in development. Sadly though, you, dear reader, are not emblematic of the broader whole. One tweet summed up the differing perspective, quote, "If you know how game development goes, you'd know that visuals are one of the first things done. The game is 4 years into planning and development. What you see is almost exactly what you will get. The next year is mission coding and debugging, all back-end stuff. It does look like arse," end quote. This person has gone on to protect their tweets owing to the massive dunking he has been handed by every corner of the game dev development scene, and it was wholesome because to demonstrate just how wrong this guy was, developers started linking clips and screenshots of their games when they were early in development. Here's Control from Remedy in its early stages, featuring a much thicker Jesse and a much more simplified set of levels, including a box marked "Throw Me." Really wish they kept that in. Next up was Back 4 Blood, which ended up being a pretty nice looking game, but you certainly wouldn't think it by looking at this in-progress footage. Cult of the Lamb was one of the most striking examples. I mean, it already looked pretty good back in the day, but the visual uplift since then was absolutely profound, and this title is easily one of the best looking released this year. Rare showed off a much younger looking build of Sea of Thieves, being played by a much younger looking Phil Spencer. This was 2014, and needless to say, things have changed a lot since then, for both Phil and the game. Outriders showed off an early boss battle, and can I just say that this looks scarier than anything that made it into the final build of the game? And my favorite was Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the best looking games of the PS4 generation, which looked just as stunning as the final product at every stage of its development. Right, screenshot? See? What did I tell you? A masterpiece of visual design from the first frame to the last. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the week in video games. Believe it or not, I have more previews on the way. Some of them are pretty big. I'm under embargo for all of them, so I can't talk about them. But over the next 2 weeks, you can expect all of them to drop. And then we're into the huge month of October reviews. And then God of War Ragnarok. I cannot believe it. It's so soon. There are plenty of reasons to stick around with your boy Shillup, so if you want to do that, then hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, then smacking the like button would be highly appreciated. You've been a great audience. I've been Shillup. Catch you on the flip side. Oh, and by the way, Australians, stick around because this week's sponsor is for you. Cyberpunk is all the rage right now, what with the excellent Edge Runners anime on Netflix, not to mention the latest patch 1.6 update or the promise of a major expansion next year. If you've never jumped into the world of Cyberpunk and you're interested to do so, then let me tell you this. You want to do it on a PC running at max settings. That is the absolute best way to experience that game because few games, even now, 2 years after Cyberpunk's release, can compete with the level of graphical fidelity that Night City is pumping out on the reg. But I get it, PC hardware isn't cheap. But what if I told you there was a way to play Cyberpunk at max settings for a fraction of the cost of a top-of-the-line PC? Enter NVIDIA GeForce Now powered by Pentanet. It's a cloud gaming platform that lets you experience PC games running on high-end hardware without having to front the thousands of dollars for that hardware, and you can play those games on your TV, your old, outdated PC, and your mobile devices, including Apple devices. This is possible because GeForce Now does all the graphical processing in the cloud and just beams you an image, similar to something like Netflix. So if you have an internet connection of 15 megabytes per second or higher, you can start playing games through the cloud on almost any device through either a dedicated app or through a web browser like Apple's Safari. So for example, this is me playing Cyberpunk 2077, max settings, ray tracing enabled, on my phone. Not bad, huh? But what if you don't want to use a phone? That's fine. This is footage of me playing Guardians of the Galaxy on my PC through the handy GeForce Now PC client. I just browse through the list of games I own, I boot it up, and within seconds, I'm playing Guardians of the Galaxy with ray tracing enabled. That is awesome, because it means you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a next-gen GPU to enjoy games like this at max settings. You can just play it through GeForce Now and save yourself the cash. The thing I love most about this service, and the reason I'm recommending it to you, is that GeForce Now powered by Pentanet respects your existing game libraries. You don't have to buy games twice with GeForce Now. There's over 1,000 compatible games and more are being added to it every week. And if you own those games on Steam, Epic, or Ubisoft Connect, then you can play them on either your local hardware or through GeForce Now. It's entirely up to you. Give GeForce Now a try and you can see for yourself how many games are available, how easy it is to load up and start playing games in your library, how smooth and reliable the connection is, all of it. And if you want to improve the experience even further, you can use GeForce Now on the NVIDIA Shield TV Pro, which will upscale your GeForce Now games to 4K so they'll look even better on your 4K TV or monitor. I would love it if you guys did me a solid and clicked the link, signed up and checked it out, not only because this would make Papa NVIDIA very happy, but also because I really think there's a lot of value in this for you if you want to play games on the go, if you want to be able to keep playing when you're rudely kicked off the TV, or if you want to play the likes of Cyberpunk without having to front the cash for a whole new PC. You can try it for free and you can sign up for a priority subscription to secure your founder's price, and that founder's price will be locked in for the full lifetime of your subscription. Get in quick though, as that founder's price is just about to disappear and it will never be available again. The link is below. Like I said, it's free to try, nothing to lose, so give it a click and sign up. Thanks GeForce Now powered by Pentanet for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.